I have full confidence in Catherine and William. Their judgment is sound, their loyalty unquestionable.
The announcement did not arrive with trumpets, ceremony, or celebration. It came inside a sealed palace file, carried through a private corridor, and placed before 3 members of the royal family. Within minutes, one woman had inherited a collection tied to the late queen's most personal memories. Another had discovered that a promise she had trusted for years no longer protected her. Princess Catherine had been chosen, and Camilla understood instantly what that choice meant. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Catherine read the inventory twice inside a private sitting room at Windsor. The list named tiaras, brooches, necklaces, lockets, and family pieces connected to births, weddings, tours, and national mourning. These were not the crown jewels, the state-owned ceremonial treasures used by the sovereign. They were the late queen's personal heirlooms, carrying memories no valuation could measure. King Charles had confirmed that Catherine would inherit the designated collection, including pieces Camilla believed had been promised to her for lifelong use. William watched his wife lower the pages without speaking. Catherine felt honored, but the honor came wrapped in dread. She told him that accepting the collection could wound the family and turn every future appearance into a silent comparison between her and the queen consort. The prince chose his words carefully. He reminded her that the decision had not been requested, negotiated, or won. It had been entrusted. Still, Catherine could feel the weight of what the jewels would say before she wore them. Camilla received the news in a separate room. She did not move when an aide explained that control of the collection would pass directly to Catherine. Her fingers tightened around the chair until the knuckles paled. Then she asked one cold question. When was this decided? The answer did not calm her. Charles refused to call the transfer a revision. He described it as the fulfillment of an instruction made before his mother's death, suggesting the outcome had been settled while Camilla still believed the future was hers. One piece made the loss unbearable. A historic diamond and pearl brooch, chosen by Camilla for a future state occasion, appeared near the top of Catherine's list. The late monarch had linked it to the future queen after a private family moment no one had explained. Then another detail emerged. William had known the sealed instructions existed. Camilla's hurt hardened into suspicion because the inheritance no longer looked sudden, it looked protected. But before Camilla could challenge the decision, she first had to confront the painful truth about the people standing on opposite sides of the inheritance. This was never merely a dispute over diamonds. For Catherine, the heirlooms represented trust she had never demanded. For Camilla, they represented acceptance she believed she had finally earned. And for Charles, they carried the final authority of a mother whose decisions could still command the palace from beyond the grave. Each understood the jewels differently, yet all 3 knew the same thing. Whoever held them would inherit far more than beauty. Catherine had spent years learning from the late queen, without ever announcing that closeness. The monarch guided her through engagements, family gatherings, and public moments, preparing her for future queenship, the role of the woman expected to stand beside the next king. She taught patience, restraint, and the danger of allowing private hurt to become public spectacle. Catherine remembered every lesson now, because accepting the collection could make those lessons look like weapons used against Camilla. William listened, as his wife admitted what frightened her most. Every brooch, necklace, or tiara could be interpreted as a victory. Every state appearance could suggest that one queen's legacy had been lifted from another woman and placed on Catherine's shoulders. She looked down at her wedding ring and asked whether refusing the inheritance might spare the family another fracture. The prince answered with certainty. Refusal would not heal Camilla, he said. It would reject the late queen's judgment. Camilla carried a different history. She had spent years surviving controversy, public anger, and the slow process of being accepted beside Charles. Access to the queen's heirlooms had become more than privilege. It was proof that she had finally entered the family's inner circle rather than standing at its edge. She remembered a private conversation in which the king assured her that certain jewels would remain available for her lifetime. Nothing had been written, but she had heard a promise. Charles knew that memory was real. He had allowed his wife's expectation to grow because challenging it would have opened an argument he was not ready to face. Yet his mother's written wishes left no room for comfort. The monarch could honor Camilla's belief or obey the queen's instruction, but he could not do both. His silence became a confession, and she understood it before he found the courage to speak. Camilla requested the inheritance file that evening. Near the back, one page referred to an earlier royal ceremony and a private adjustment made afterward. Her eyes stopped on the date. The decision had not begun with Catherine's inheritance at all. The real cause of the decision had begun years earlier, during one carefully planned appearance that ended with a private exchange no one inside the family ever forgot. Long before the sealed file reached Windsor, the future of the heirlooms had been decided in a room filled with applause. No argument was heard. No public insult occurred. Yet one small act during a royal ceremony exposed a division the late queen could no longer ignore. Catherine responded with restraint. Camilla reacted with wounded pride. And before the evening ended, the monarch made a private remark to her dresser that would later determine who inherited the most personal symbols of her reign. The queen had already begun considering how her personal collection should be divided. Some pieces would remain available for royal service, meaning they could continue to be worn for official duties, while others would pass privately through the family. Camilla expected lifelong control of several important heirlooms because she would stand beside Charles as queen consort, the wife of the reigning king. Catherine was expected to receive a smaller group linked to the next generation. Then one evening changed everything. Camilla approached Catherine shortly before a Commonwealth reception at Windsor. The reception brought representatives from the Commonwealth, the group of nations connected through shared history and cooperation, into one of the monarchy's most symbolic settings. She asked Catherine to remove the Queen's diamond maple leaf brooch before entering the main hall. Camilla planned to wear a more prominent piece and did not want two royal women carrying competing symbols. Catherine felt the insult immediately, but she did not argue. She opened the velvet case, returned the brooch, and entered the reception without a major jewel. The Queen noticed the empty space on her coat almost at once. She watched Catherine move through the evening with perfect calm, then later asked why the brooch had disappeared. Catherine protected Camilla. She called it a simple wardrobe adjustment and tried to move the conversation away. Yet the monarch heard the hesitation beneath her answer. She understood that Catherine had surrendered something to prevent embarrassment, and she understood who had demanded it. The Queen summoned her longtime dresser after the guests had gone. She requested the private jewelry register, the confidential record showing where each personal piece would eventually go, and ordered several heirlooms reassigned to Catherine's future care. Her reason was simple and severe. The collection should belong to someone who would never use it to reduce another royal woman. Camilla later discovered that the Windsor reception had shaped the inheritance. Her anger settled on one question. What had Catherine truly told the Queen that night, and why had she remained silent afterward? Years of restrained resentment were about to enter one closed room, where neither woman could hide behind ceremony, aids, or carefully rehearsed smiles. The meeting began with perfect politeness. Tea was poured. Chairs were positioned. The door closed behind the final aide. Then Camilla placed the inheritance inventory on the table between them and asked Catherine whether she had spent years waiting for this moment. The accusation struck harder because it was spoken quietly. Catherine did not rise, retreat, or apologize. For the first time, the two women were alone with the resentment the palace had spent years pretending did not exist. Camilla had demanded the meeting at Clarence House, her London residence, and insisted that no secretaries, advisors, or husbands be present. Catherine agreed because refusal would have turned private hostility into open war. Between them lay the inheritance inventory, the official list naming each heirloom and its new guardian. Every marked line transformed years of suspicion into something fixed, visible, and impossible to dismiss. Camilla pushed the file across the table. She accused Catherine of influencing the late Queen after the Commonwealth reception and demanded to know what had been said once the guests departed. Catherine answered that she had asked for nothing. She had not complained, bargained, or tried to punish anyone. Her voice remained steady until Camilla suggested that silence had been another form of manipulation. Catherine's restraint finally cracked. She said the Queen had made her own judgments and could not be controlled by a pause, a glance, or a carefully chosen answer. Camilla replied that the jewels were meant to confirm her place beside Charles after years of rejection. Catherine looked at her directly and said inheritance could not erase the battles someone had fought to reach the throne. Camilla stood so quickly that her chair scraped backward across the floor. The room changed. Catherine then revealed that she had considered refusing the entire collection. Only the Queen's accompanying letter had stopped her. The letter described the heirlooms as responsibilities, not prizes, and charged their guardian with protecting continuity, the unbroken passage of royal memory from one generation to the next. Catherine understood that refusal would not be humility. It would be disobedience. Camilla asked whether she could read the letter. Catherine refused, explaining that its most personal words belonged to the family's future, not to a contest over wounded pride. That refusal cut deeper than accusation between them. Camilla heard something colder beneath those words. Catherine had not merely inherited the jewels, she had inherited the late monarch's confidence. She left Clarence's house convinced that Charles had allowed both women to walk into this collision while hiding behind silence. Catherine had defended her conscience, but the fate of the collection still rested with the one man capable of enforcing, or overturning, the Queen's instruction. Charles had spent a lifetime living beneath the authority of the crown and the expectations of his mother. Now both forces had returned inside a single red box. His wife wanted him to honor what she believed he had promised. His son expected him to preserve the late Queen's written wishes. Between them stood a collection of heirlooms that had become evidence of loyalty, legitimacy, and love. Whatever he decided, one relationship would never feel the same again. William spoke first, and his words left no safe middle ground. The prince told his father that the issue was larger than Catherine, larger even than Camilla. If the monarch changed the arrangement now, future generations would learn that a royal promise survived only until it became inconvenient. Charles knew the danger. As king and family patriarch, he controlled how the transfer would be carried out, but overturning his mother's direction would wound both family trust and the monarchy's sense of continuity. Midnight found Charles alone at his desk. He opened the red box, the secure case used to carry the sovereign's official papers, and read the Queen's accompanying letter again. The final paragraph stopped him. He removed his glasses, placed them beside the file, and sat without speaking. His mother had not named Catherine as a simple beneficiary. She had called her the future guardian of the collection, responsible for preserving each story and passing selected pieces to the next royal generation. Camilla entered before he closed the file. She reminded him of the reassurance he had given her and said the loss felt like being welcomed before the public while remaining outside the family in private. The Queen consort did not ask for sympathy. She asked whether his word had ever meant anything. Charles lowered his eyes, then admitted the truth. He had allowed her expectations to grow because he feared another painful confrontation. The confession hurt more than denial. Camilla understood that he had offered emotional certainty without holding the power to guarantee it. She asked whether Catherine knew how much this would cost them. Charles answered that his mother had known and had chosen anyway. William's warning remained between them, making clear that any reversal would place Charles's comfort above the late Queen's final judgment forever afterward. Silence hardened into decision. The king lifted his pen and signed the transfer order, the document that placed the heirlooms formally under Catherine's care. Camilla watched the nib leave the page. In that instant, the argument stopped being private pain and became royal fact. The signature settled ownership in seconds, but beyond the desk, its consequences began spreading through residences, wardrobes, staff offices, and private relationships. By morning, the palace machinery had already begun to move. Cases were checked. Security codes were changed. Jewelry records were rewritten. Staff who had once prepared certain pieces for Camilla were instructed to redirect all requests through Catherine's household. The transfer was efficient, almost silent, and that silence made it brutal. A personal disappointment had become an administrative fact. Every lock, signature, and velvet box now confirmed that the monarchy had shifted its trust toward the future. Palace jewelers inspected each setting for damage. Conservators updated the official records, and security officers arranged the first secured transfer to Windsor. Catherine's household received new handling protocols, the rules explaining who could request, transport, clean, or store each piece. These changes mattered because access created influence. Whoever controlled the collection controlled how the late Queen's memory would appear at ceremonies, state visits, and family occasions. Camilla's staff received the harder instruction. Several heirlooms once kept available for her possible use could no longer leave storage without Catherine's approval. The order changed upcoming engagements and shifted the balance between the two households. Before a state dinner, Camilla entered her dressing room and asked for the diamond and pearl brooch. Her dresser hesitated, then admitted it had already been transferred. Camilla stared at the empty presentation space. She dismissed the room with 2 words and waited until the door closed. Alone, the Queen consort removed the earrings she had chosen and left them beside the mirror. Her title could command deference, but it could not shield her from a judgment made before she received it. For the first time, she understood that rank and trust were not the same inheritance. Catherine faced a different kind of pain at Windsor. When the first secured case arrived, she asked the attendants to leave before it was opened. William remained as she placed both hands on the lid, overwhelmed by the thought of carrying another woman's history. The prince said nothing. He knew reassurance would sound too small beside the burden waiting inside. Catherine finally lifted the lid. The brooch from the Commonwealth reception rested above a handwritten card from the late Queen. The message thanked her for choosing dignity over competition, when silence would have been easier to misunderstand. Catherine read the words twice. Her hesitation did not disappear, but it changed into resolve. Accepting it now meant honoring not only the monarch's choice, but also the quiet restraint that had caused the Queen to make it. Then Camilla sent an unexpected request for one final private meeting. This time there would be no inventory, no advisors, and no struggle over legal control. Only two women deciding what remained after the victory and the loss. Camilla did not ask for the collection back. She did not demand another review or appeal to Charles. Instead, she asked Catherine to meet her in a small private room, and arrived carrying nothing. The anger that had powered their confrontation was gone, leaving behind something harder to resist: humiliation. For Catherine, this was no longer a contest between present and future queens. It was a choice between protecting her inheritance and protecting the dignity of the woman who had lost it. Catherine entered the Windsor room alone. No aides waited outside with notes, no formal agenda controlled the conversation, and no palace record existed beyond the time reserved. Both women understood that the legal question had ended. The Queen had chosen Catherine as guardian, the person trusted to preserve the heirlooms and pass their meaning forward. Camilla no longer disputed that decision. She wanted to know how the future would look once the jewels appeared in public. Camilla spoke carefully at first. Then the control slipped. She admitted that losing the pieces was not her deepest fear. What frightened her was watching the world celebrate Catherine's inheritance as proof that she had never truly belonged. Her voice faltered on the final words, and for a moment the Queen Consort looked less like a rival than a woman facing the limits of everything she had fought to earn. Catherine did not offer false comfort. She said the transfer could not be hidden and should not be treated as shameful. The heirlooms carried the late monarch's judgment, and pretending otherwise would dishonor her. Yet Catherine also promised that she would never use them as weapons. She would not choose a first appearance designed to embarrass Camilla or turn a family wound into public triumph. Catherine then opened a small velvet case. Inside rested a modest heirloom, not restricted by the Queen's instruction. She offered Camilla its continued use at an upcoming diplomatic reception, a formal gathering where the monarchy receives representatives from another nation. The gesture was not compensation, it was respect. Camilla refused at first. Pride rose before gratitude could reach her. Then she looked at Catherine and asked her to choose the piece herself. That request changed everything. For the first time, Camilla placed symbolic authority in Catherine's hands instead of fighting to control it. Neither woman called it forgiveness, but both understood that open warfare had ended. Their understanding prevented a family rupture, but privacy could not protect it forever. Soon Catherine would appear wearing the collection's most recognizable jewel. When Catherine finally stepped before the public carrying the Queen's legacy, one carefully chosen image transformed a private inheritance into a national verdict. The palace released no dramatic statement explaining the inheritance. It did not need to. At a service marking the late Queen's life, Catherine arrived wearing the diamond and pearl brooch at the center of the dispute. Cameras moved toward her before she reached the entrance. Crowds recognized it. Broadcasters paused. And beside Charles stood Camilla, wearing the smaller heirloom Catherine had selected for her. In one carefully balanced appearance, the royal family revealed both the transfer of legacy and the fragile piece built around it. Catherine had chosen the memorial service carefully. The event honored the late monarch, allowing the brooch to speak of remembrance rather than personal triumph. Palace officials described the appearance as continuity across generations, meaning the steady passing of duty, memory, and responsibility from one royal era to the next. They avoided every word that might turn the inheritance into a public victory over Camilla. Yet the meaning could not be hidden. Crowds gathered outside Buckingham Palace before the service ended. Some carried photographs of the Queen. Others watched live coverage on their phones. One elderly woman pointed toward Catherine's image and said the jewel looked as though it had reached the person meant to protect it. Her words spread quickly, because they captured what many people already felt. The brooch had become a symbol of trust, not possession. Morning brought the verdict in print. One newspaper placed a full-width photograph of Catherine touching the brooch while greeting the crowd beneath the headline, "The Queen's Trust Passes Forward." Commentators divided sharply. Some called the transfer a deliberate elevation of the future queen. Others focused on Camilla's composed presence and described her participation as discipline under private strain. The queen consort had lost the collection, but she had refused to let that loss become disorder. Catherine understood the cost beside her. During the service, she did not touch the brooch again or draw attention to it. Camilla wore the modest heirloom chosen at Windsor and carried herself without hesitation. Then their eyes met. Catherine gave no triumphant smile. Camilla answered with a small nod, publicly honoring the understanding they had reached in private. William watched the exchange from nearby and understood that Catherine had transformed a contested inheritance into an act of restraint before the entire nation. That single gesture settled the narrative beyond the palace walls. The inheritance belonged to Catherine, but humiliation would not define Camilla's place beside Charles. Still, one final truth remained unresolved. What had the Queen's choice permanently changed inside the monarchy? The jewels had found their guardian, the public had delivered its judgment, and the family now had to accept the deeper meaning of the Queen's final choice. In the end, Catherine did not inherit the heirlooms because she had defeated Camilla. She inherited them because the late Queen believed restraint was stronger than possession, service was greater than status, and the future of the monarchy depended on symbols being entrusted to someone who understood their burden. Camilla lost a promise she believed would confirm her place. Yet through that loss, she faced a truth no title could change. Royal legacy is not claimed by expectation. It is granted through trust. Catherine retained guardianship of the collection, carrying responsibility for wearing, preserving, documenting, and eventually passing selected pieces to the next generation. Guardianship meant more than ownership. It meant protecting the stories attached to each jewel, so memory would survive beyond one reign. Charles did not weaken the arrangement. The king recorded his mother's instruction in the family archive, the protected historical record of private royal decisions, ensuring pressure could never reopen the dispute. Catherine returned to the Windsor sitting room where the sealed file had changed everything. She opened the brooch case, read the Queen's handwritten message once more, and placed the card beneath the velvet lining. The guilt that had followed her loosened. She understood that courage did not always mean avoiding pain. Sometimes it meant carrying a difficult trust without allowing that trust to become cruelty. Camilla made her own choice. She stopped requesting the disputed pieces and appeared at the next formal event, wearing the modest heirloom Catherine had selected. The Queen consort showed no visible resentment. She could not undo the judgment, but she could decide how she would live beside it. By choosing dignity over confrontation, she protected the place she held beside Charles. Charles accepted that his fear of conflict had nearly damaged both women. William recognized something important. Catherine's compassion had prevented a legal decision from becoming a permanent personal war. The prince saw that strength inside the monarchy was measured not only by who possessed authority, but by how carefully that authority was used. The inheritance marked a decisive transfer of symbolic power from the late queen to the future queen. Camilla remained the king's consort, but Catherine became the guardian of the monarchy's emotional memory. She had not demanded the role. She had earned it by carrying responsibility without turning it into revenge. The Queen's heirlooms did more than pass from one generation to the next. They revealed where the monarchy had placed its deepest trust, and Princess Catherine accepted that trust with the quiet strength that had earned it. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.